Good morning. We'll get started in about a minute. We'll just wait for a few more people to join, and then we'll get started. For this session, we're hoping to have some interactive discussions in the chat box. So feel free to put anything in the chat box, introduce yourself, say hi, and make any comments during the presentation as well. Okay, we'll get started. I'll introduce myself. I'm Todd Lease. I'm the Traffic Incident Management Coordinator for the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. I also, along with some others, help to run the PennTIME Traffic Incident Management Program, which is our statewide traffic incident management program. I'm joined here today by Dave Wolf, who is my right-hand man for PennTIME and everything PennTIME, and Chuck Yorks. Dave is with Drive Engineering, and Chuck is with Gannett Fleming. So we'll get started. Again, if you have any questions as we go through this, please use the chat box, and we'll take some time for discussions as we go through here. So where are we at with PennTIME? How do we start with what we're doing with PennTIME? PennTIME is a Pennsylvania Traffic Incident Management Enhancement. And what we want to get out of this session is for how you could help us grow and how you could help us become better. We need your input, your advice, your counsel, your wisdom. So that's what we're looking to do here.
The origins of Pennsylvania's enhanced traffic incident management efforts can be traced back to 1998, when firefighter Dave Good was killed in a secondary crash incident on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Firefighter Good and other members of the Lionville Fire Company had responded to what was considered a routine incident where a passenger vehicle slid off the roadway in rainy conditions. However, while responders were operating on the roadway, a tractor-trailer lost control trying to avoid the emergency activity and overturned, sliding directly into emergency vehicles and responders. Firefighter Good was killed and many of his colleagues were seriously injured.
So first of all, I'd like to start off by saying thanks to Todd for asking me to join him today on the presentation. And of course, always a pleasure to join my colleague Chuck from Gannett Fleming. The takeaway from the video that you just saw right there is that traffic incident management and the need for it is nothing new. PennTIME is still relatively new at 3 years old, but with an incident that goes back to 1998, the issue of responders being struck and injured and killed on the roadways certainly is not new. And, it even obviously predates 1998, but that seems to be the flashpoint incident in time that really kicked off the need for enhanced traffic incident management in Pennsylvania. So we're very happy to be here with you today and show you and discuss with you, hopefully through the chat box, ways that the traffic incident management community, traffic operations folks, the folks with boots on the ground can really work together with the engineering community to make the situation with TIM better in Pennsylvania, because they cannot work in silos. They need to work together. There are things that engineers can certainly bring to the table to assist the responders, and there is a lot that the responders can bring to the engineers to make them understand the types of things that can be done so that they can be designed into projects. So to start off at its very basic core, we always look at what is a traffic incident. And this is the definition that comes straight from the MUTCD, basically an emergency road user occurrence, natural disaster, or other unplanned event that affects or impedes the normal flow of traffic. And you see the word unplanned in there. Obviously, there are planned events that can do the same. But with planned, obviously, you have the luxury of time to manage things. So we really focus more on the unplanned events. Go ahead, Todd, you can move ahead to the next slide, which is going to be a video that was produced for our online e-learning. There is no audio with this, but these are some of the things that happen on the roadway on a regular basis. These are just quick snippets of the types of incidents that responders are facing on the roads in Pennsylvania and, quite frankly, nationwide. It's not just responders. You have some folks there simply trying to put gas in their vehicle when they ran out of fuel and they were struck by a vehicle. So these are the challenges that we're up against. These are the situations that we are trying to mitigate and improve. We know that it will never be a perfect world, but it can be a much better world when it comes to the safety of everybody on the roadway, be it responders or the public at large. So with that, Todd, I'll turn it back over to you for a look at the next video. And you just have to unmute, sir.
Thanks, Dave. You'd think I know that by now. Every day we have traffic crashes. We have incidents that occur in the backlog. And this was one that occurred in the Harrisburg area several years ago. This is a fatal crash. So as you watch this crash, there's 3 people that are going to be killed in this crash. And while we don't like to sensationalize anything or show anything, you did not see any bodies here, but we want you to understand that these happen every day on our roadway. So we can't pretend they don't happen. So this is why we need to have safety at our incident scenes, and why we have to have early warning and back to queue management. What's happening here is a truck driver who is impaired, driving down the road, speeding into a work zone where there's delays, strikes these cars, caused a fire. A 2-year-old little girl, her 28-year-old father, and a 53-year-old female is killed in this crash. And it's tragic and it's unfortunate. And the driver was found guilty. He thinks his sentence was too harsh, so they're going back to see if they have to resentence him. But I don't think it's harsh enough. I think he only got 25 years for this crash that he was impaired in. So let's look at this every day. These are some crashes that we had recently. Last year, over a year ago, this was a bright sunny day. The driver of the truck fell asleep driving down the roadway, didn't see the fire truck parked in the lane. Luckily, the fire truck was parked there and did its job of blocking. We teach using your vehicle to block. They'd rather have you hit your vehicle than to hit your personnel. So that's about $30,000 damage to that to Squad 33 there from Center Square Fire Company. The thing is, when they go out of service, then that they don't have that piece of apparatus to use for emergency calls for your community. So that could be out of service for weeks or months, depending on how severe the damage is. So remember, when something like this happens, it's not like you just go down to the dealership and get the loaner vehicle and have something. Doesn't always happen. This is another fatal crash that occurred up on the turnpike called Northeast Extension. I'm about 0.2 of a mile in front of this crash when it happens, and we knew we had some traffic delays. And actually, the person shooting this video was going to the same meeting that I was hosting to talk about crashes that occurred in this area. The next vehicle that passes here is a dark pickup truck. This pickup truck gets overturned in this crash. And then the vehicle behind here is a black Acura where there's a family of 5 in the car, and a 5-year-old little girl is killed in this accident. Again, you see the impact, and we won't delay it too far, but these are the reasons why we need to protect that queue. That driver was just actually indicted for causing this crash. They said he was texting and driving. I think there's a lot more going on than texting and driving. Again, I was at that scene, but these are the things we're trying to prevent when we have these crashes. So even during the pandemic, this is another crash that occurred earlier this year. Traffic volume is down 40 to 60% at times, and we still have responders getting hit. We still have motorists getting hit, or customers getting hit. So we want to change that. Another one here on the South Bridge on 81 South that occurred. Troopers pulled up behind that truck. That was a reported stolen truck. As they were looking at that, they got rear-ended. Their vehicle got rear-ended by a van going full speed. Another one here on the bypass. So these are some of our TMA hits that we had on the turnpike. These are just some of the many that we've had since this occurred, and people aren't paying attention. They're driving faster here. Another crash. Luckily, this tow truck operator actually dropped his keys. He bent down to pick up his keys when the vehicle went over his head. Otherwise, he would have been killed. 2 Pennsylvania responders were struck and killed this year. Paramedic Matt Smelser on Interstate 70, as well as tow operator Tyler Laudenslager was also struck and killed this year in July on Interstate 78. So going to turn it over to Chuck to talk about why Tim.
Thanks, Todd, and good day, everybody. Why traffic incident management as a what I call a never-ending conversation. Traffic incidents continue to be the leading cause of death for emergency responders. People, many of them volunteers, putting their lives at risk, so that any response that we do make does create an unsafe situation. The crash itself is unsafe, and the response is also unsafe. And we want to try to do the best we can to minimize the risk. Opportunities or the likelihood of a secondary crash continues to increase, kind of intuitively obvious to the engineers, the longer that we're exposed. So our goal is to continue to decrease the exposure of our responders and also decrease the exposure of our motorists to unsafe situations. Next slide there, Todd.
Yep.
And again, it's a cooperative effort. It's important that we've got various disciplines represented here on the slide, but it's just as important, especially talking to some of the folks here who are traffic engineers or other kinds of professional engineers, but engineers, utilities, a number of groups that are not necessarily represented here, engaged in the conversation, makes a lot of sense. Last night, or yesterday afternoon, we had over 40 people in a virtual exercise in the central Pennsylvania area, the Harrisburg area, where we had chambers of commerce, various emergency operations centers involved. But we also focused the thing on the major traffic generator, which is the Hershey Entertainment Resorts Complex. So continuing this conversation with as many people as possible is our goal.
So next slide here. Typical year, how many responders are struck and killed in this country? Typical year, 10 law enforcement officers, 4 fire and rescue, estimated 40 to 60 tow and recovery professionals, and several transportation professionals. There's no one database to track all this, so it's a challenge to track this. In 2019, there was 44 emergency responders struck and killed in this country. We've started tracking them. I, along with Jack Sullivan from ResponderSafety.com and Angela Roper from the Arizona Towing Association, track these numbers for federal highway. But where do we get our numbers from? We get them from social media, from news. So we need a better way of tracking that. So again, the people that are on this call or listening to this, we need your help. How do we track these numbers? How do we find out where do we pull this data from? In Pennsylvania, we really don't track responder crashes that occur, whether there's injuries, accidents, or entrapment. This year, so far, there's 46 emergency responders struck and killed. Remember, this is a year where traffic volumes are down 40%, and we have 2 more responders struck and killed this year so far. An average of 2 emergency responders are struck each day. Now, that doesn't mean they're injured. That means they had equipment damage, they may be injured, or they may be killed. So that's an average about 1 every 8 days so far for this year of a responder being killed. That's not necessarily there may be more than that. We know the number of responders killed, but how many are injured? About 1 every other day are injured. So we want to make sure that we keep track of those numbers. And how do we keep track of those numbers? I made up a map to try to show this. So this map is an interactive map. If you click on this map, each of those icons represents an emergency responder killed. If you click on this is in Google Map, it shows you where they were killed and a little bit about the incident. So for this incident, it shows you a little bit about how this map works. And this map is currently on ResponderSafety.com, www.respondersafety.com. It's also in our virtual booth, our PennTIME virtual booth for the conference. If you go there, you'll be able to see this map as well. What this does when you click on this, it brings up, tells you a little bit about the responder that was killed, shows you a picture of the responder because I want to put a face to the number. I don't just want it to be a number. So tells you what happened to them, the department, when the incident occurred, and gives you a little bit more detail. Paramedic Janice King Livingston, she was struck at an accident scene. All these are secondary crashes. Matt Smelzer was out of a crash on Interstate 70 when a commercial vehicle went out of control and struck him on an icy condition. So we're always trying to work together to keep this response. This is the first year too that we've had a responder killed in Hawaii, and we've had another one killed in Alaska. The Alaska one just occurred several weeks ago. Pennsylvania numbers here. Struck by, we had 109 law enforcement, 21 fire and rescue, 16 towers, 3 EMS workers, 89 PennDOT workers, and 41 turnpike workers. There's no one database for these. These are 6 different databases that we found out how many. So we need help to be able to track these, and how do we track these, and how do we get some numbers and look at how do we prevent these crashes. This is a map I made very similar for Pennsylvania. So each one of these icons represents a Pennsylvania responder that had been struck and killed. We haven't even talked about the responders that are struck and injured and often have life-changing injuries that they may never recover from. So, we have to take those into account as well. This is a poster that we made up honoring the 151 Pennsylvania first responders. So these shows you the first responders that have been struck and killed in Pennsylvania so far. We usually put these posters out when we have the Turnpike Memorial and the PennDOT Memorial out. Make sure you go to our PennTIME virtual booth. It has links to the Turnpike and the PennTIME memorials, as well as the Pennsylvania responders that have been killed on that booth. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave to talk about some D drivers.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. So what are we up against here? As Todd said, these are the D drivers, as they are known. I'm sure just about everybody on this meeting right now knows what these are, but if you don't, this is the term that we affectionately use for the people who are on the roadways who are drunk, drugged, drowsy, distracted, deliberate, dangerous, or quite frankly, just plain dumb. These are the people that are usually at fault when incidents like this occur. But there are some other types out there as well, and we'll see another box pop up here in just a second. We have disgruntled drivers. We have, the people who are driving angry, basically, and as well we have the developing drivers, which are your younger drivers who are just getting their feet under them, so to speak, on the roads. And Todd, I don't know if you can advance if it's going to bring up that other box. We have the distinguished, what we call the distinguished drivers, who are some of our older drivers. And then, of course, moving ahead, we look at the driverless vehicles that are starting to hit the road and will be increasing significantly in the years ahead. And there have been a number of well-publicized events and incidents involving driverless technology involved in responders struck by incidents and other types of crashes. So we're starting to really take a hard look at that and start getting that information in here, sort of in the nascent stages of the connected automated revolution before it gets too far away from us. So here's a good example of what we call the D driver. This is a picture that I actually took while I was on the turnpike, riding in the passenger seat. So I was not a distracted driver. But this was taken on the Pennsylvania Turnpike heading in the westbound direction, middle of the afternoon, average speeds probably anywhere from 65 to 75 miles per hour. And this gentleman was eating his lunch from a styrofoam container with chopsticks. That's Panda Express, if anybody wants to know. But he was eating his lunch, no hands on the wheel, looking down into his container. So this is the kind of thing that happens on an all too regular basis that we are looking to combat as much as we can. So how do we do it? There are a lot of efforts out there, and there have been a lot of efforts out there for a number of years. And a lot of these are really starting to gel underneath the umbrella of PennTIME, something that we're very, very pleased with. You look at some of these local and regional traffic incident management efforts. You've got some of your heavier hitters with your task forces in the Southwestern section of the Commonwealth, with SPC leading the charge out there with my friend Chuck. You've got Southeastern Pennsylvania under the charge of Chris King and his staff at the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. Those guys are really one of the forefathers of the effort in terms of regional TIM task forces. South Central Pennsylvania really been ramping up over the past, couple of years in the South Central Task Force, Tri-County Planning, Lebanon County Planning, PennDOT District 8, really getting their act together in the South Central section with putting these groups together. And of course, all interwoven with, the transportation agencies and the emergency management folks, as well as the state police, helping to drive these forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chuck, and Chuck is going to get into a little bit more detail on Southwestern PA because he's one of the leaders with helping Josh Spano and his team out there with Dom DeAndrea get these Southwestern efforts going. So go ahead, Chuck. And you are muted, sir.
I am. Well, I'm not going to say thank you, Dave. Southwestern Pennsylvania commissioned in about its 10th year of operation of teams, and generally saw the need as Federal Highway Administration came out and started talking about the need to institutionalize traffic incident management. So we've gone through a number of local teams. Right now, we've got 2 active teams. We're very involved in continuing to do FHWA's traffic incident management self-assessment. Just got our results today, and we had a considerable increase in our scores from a year before. We developed some TIM guidelines. It's a simple 4-page document that follows the National Unified Goal. We've done a Sharp 2 training workshop, a Train the Trainer workshop back in 2013, and a number of those folks were involved, have been involved and continue to be involved in some of the training, and collaborated with Ohio and West Virginia for a 1-day conference to get that multi-state opportunity going. Go on to the next one. Through the operations of one of our teams, in particular our city tunnels team, we found a very willing partner in City of Pittsburgh Fire Department, and very happy to say that we were able to put together a team of instructors. We ran 40 in-person classes in 20 days in March and April. Every single firefighter and a number of EMTs, but every single firefighter in the city of Pittsburgh took that training, including the fire chief, Daryl Jones, who participated in the very last class just to make sure that everybody had taken it. But great success and in-person classes, and able to do something, and they've come back to us already and said that they've had great benefit just from being involved in a 3-hour class. One of our other opportunities in the next slide, we did a tunnel training exercise. PennDOT was absolutely fantastically cooperative, and we closed the Liberty Tunnel Friday evening, October 4th into the 5th, back in 2019. It was an incredible opportunity for firefighters many of whom had never actually been inside the tunnel, to get the opportunity to come in and, in a simulated environment and a safe environment, were able to learn where the crossovers were, where the water sources were, what it really was like when we smoked up the tunnel itself. It was multidisciplinary in that it also involved some police officers as well as the fire department, tunnel maintenance crews, people from the traffic management center down in Bridgeville. So it was just a great opportunity to do things. And when we're out of COVID and can do it again, they did put it off this year, but the plan is to make this an annual event and close one of the tunnels. They have many there, but close one of those tunnels and give us the opportunity to train. In South Central Pennsylvania, South Central Task Force and PennDOT District 8 got together and tried to put something together to put a focus. And what we did was, there are monthly meetings of a mass evacuation task force there. And every quarter, they gave us the opportunity to do the programming for traffic incident management focus of that meeting. It eventually morphed into Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, engaged us to help them get the program started, along with Lebanon County. We started a couple of localized teams, and we had a Beltway East and a Beltway West and a Dauphin Lebanon. And then Lebanon County itself, we're still working toward those things, but at this point, we've got 2 active working teams. One is a Beltway with Cumberland and Dauphin counties involved in that, and the other one is a Hershey portion of Dauphin County leading into Lebanon County. Multiple disciplines, great things going on. What we've been able to do with this team is hold monthly meetings in a virtual environment. So we're being more aggressive with these teams than others in that we're getting an opportunity very quickly to get things going and rolling. And again, we had a great turnout yesterday for our exercise. So as we go forward, we're just going to continue to build on this. I want to give a shout out to anybody from PennDOT who happens to be on the call. In particular, Chris Flad, Matt Clauser, Marcus Lamana have been spectacularly supportive, as has Jeff Mitchell and Dave Rock. And we appreciate that in that area.
Thanks for that, Chuck. And before we move forward, a couple of things have come into the chat box. First of all, to R. Wiley, the new PennDOT District 8 Safety Coordinator. Yeah, please, you're going to see our contact information at the end of the presentation. So definitely take that information down, and we look forward to hearing from you. Chuck, a question for you from Mike O'Connor before we leave the SPC arena. Have you been able to engage with other first responders, for example, volunteer fire departments that respond to crashes on I-376, the Parkway East outside the city of Pittsburgh?
Yes, we've had sometimes tremendous success and then sometimes limited success. Volunteer fire departments are always invited. Our next push is probably going to be out toward Murraysville, and we will be involving folks on the Route 30 corridor in Westmoreland County and Allegheny County for an upcoming construction project. And we're going to create a team there, which will really concentrate on 3 or 4 volunteer fire departments.
Yeah, and we have actively engaged a lot of the responders out there in TIM training as well. So we've done multiple TIM trainings at their departments. We have multiple trainings scheduled either virtually or in person coming up there as well. So also EMS West, the EMS agencies for the western part of the state, makes our TIM training a requirement for all of them to renew their EMS certification. So we're glad to see that happens as well.
All right, thanks very much. So moving ahead into the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, like I mentioned earlier, these guys really are sort of the grandfather of the TIM task force effort throughout the Commonwealth of PA. They are the metropolitan planning organization for the Philadelphia region. They have a multi-state TIM program because they handle not only southeastern Pennsylvania, but also a sliver of southern New Jersey, just across the Delaware River from the city of Philadelphia. They were the first to establish a TIM team back in 1999, which is the I-76, I-476 Crossroads team, which is still going very, very strong to this day. It's a group that I was a part of back when I used to work for PennDOT. And that group right now is pretty instrumental in helping to move forward a number of projects in the Philadelphia region, notably the Integrated Corridor Management Project on I-76, which is the Schuylkill Expressway. They manage 8 corridor-based TIM teams, 5 in Pennsylvania, 3 in New Jersey, and they have a habit of regularly hosting train-the-trainer workshops for Sharp 2 traffic incident management trainers. They develop TIM guidelines, and they have a series of TIM conferences that they hold annually. Usually these are very large events. They hold them at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia, home of the Philadelphia Phillies. And that is a huge gathering. Unfortunately, they could not do this one this year, but hopefully that comes back in the years ahead. So they also work on providing a number of software applications. They offer a RIMUS software, which is known as the Regional Integrated Multimodal Information Sharing Software. And basically what that is a software package that offers video wall distribution of real-time video and operational maps that can be used by responders both in their stations and also in their vehicles. And another big project of theirs is their iDrum initiative, which is the interactive detour route mapping. That's currently undergoing an overhaul. The original program was built in Flash, and anybody out there who's a little bit geeky in the world of software knows that Flash is reaching end of life, I think at the end of this year. So they are rebuilding that to a more current standard, probably HTML5 or something in that realm. But the iDrum application provides the official detour routes for the interstates and major state routes within their MPO area, which again, southeastern corner of Pennsylvania and portions of southern New Jersey. So the TIM teams and task forces, basically they have regular meetings. They're pretty consistent there with either meeting on a bi-monthly or a quarterly basis. They talk about problem areas, what some gaps are, what needs are. And it's really a collaborative environment that brings together folks from the planning section, folks from consultants, consultant engineering folks, public sector folks from the DOTs, and of course, all the emergency responders of law enforcement, fire, EMS, towers. And they'll go through a series of procedures during these meetings, and usually after action reviews are leaned on pretty heavily, especially if there was a major event that occurred in between the previous meeting and the current meeting. And they're really there to promote an ongoing awareness of these traffic incident management related activities and initiatives. Training is another key component of the task forces and what they do. And it's really about that face-to-face communication of establishing these relationships, putting faces with names, and getting these relationships built so that when it comes time to operate in real time during traffic incidents, you don't have to go through any of those barriers to understand where people are coming from. They're also a good clearinghouse for project collaboration. And this is something that, again, as we talked about earlier, bridging that gap between the engineering community and the response and operations community, the task forces have really done a very good job of becoming a clearinghouse for the development of transportation management plans. And anybody who's ever developed TMPs has probably noticed in recent years a real uptick in a need and a requirement for putting in actual incident response information that can be used by the responder community. And they also are really key in working on, a particular specialized projects like the integrated corridor management project that I mentioned earlier on I-76. Those are becoming more and more in vogue in terms of finding new and innovative technological solutions to congestion. And the task forces recognize that, the responders play a role in that. And if you don't know why, well, just think about it. If you have an ICM project that calls for hard shoulder running, what do responders normally use to get to crash scenes, especially during peak traffic times when traffic is backed up? They use the shoulders. Well, suddenly those shoulders aren't available. We need some new strategies. And so that's why they have been folded into to that process. So they do a lot of great work. You can go ahead, Todd.
So where do we start off with PennTIME? In February 2014, the Transportation Advisory Committee commissioned a study on traffic incident management and came up with 28 recommendations on what to do for roadways and how to keep responders safe. And after that study was done, it sort of sat on the shelf. We really didn't do a whole lot with it. And so my leadership at the time, Bob Taylor, was my manager in traffic operations. And he said to me, what do we want to do for traffic incident management in Pennsylvania? I took this job with Turnpike. I've worked with Turnpike for 21 years, the last since 2015 in my role as traffic incident management coordinator. And we talked about doing a summit, and we called it the TIM Summit. We held it at PEMA, the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, in November of 2016. Mark Compton said it best doing the wrap up that this wasn't just a summit. This was a kickoff. This was just the start of bigger and better things. So that's what we did. We had 108 participants that met that first time. Dave was there. Dave Wolf, Chuck Yorks were part of the people that started off, and we talked about the Lionville incident here. We talked about the state of traffic incident management in Pennsylvania, what's going well, what didn't go well. Talked about the Transportation Advisory Committee, and we had breakout groups. So we looked at those breakout groups and said, if we can't tackle 28 things, let's tackle 5. And before I forget, once Dave got done with that last slide, I wanted to talk about and acknowledge Greg Mazer from PennDOT. Greg's doing a great things for traffic incident management up there on the I-80 corridor up in Mercer County and that area. So just the TIM teams that we talked about so far and we acknowledged aren't the only traffic incident management that's going on here in Pennsylvania. Other groups, other organizations and other partners are working hard to bring traffic incident management teams together. And it's been a real challenge to try to get them together, but we are seeing more people willing to communicate, coordinate, and cooperate. Our motto at the bottom of the page, one vision, one voice, all together. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be one vision, one voice, and work together on these things as well. So these were the 5 action items that we identified as a priority for us doing this. Establish the PennTIME program, Pennsylvania Traffic Incident Management Enhancement Program. We want to establish the executive statewide traffic incident management panel. These are the leaders of our organization. So they're the ones that could obviously dictate budget. They could make policy. So these are I like to refer to them as the queen bees that they're running the hive. They're letting us know what we can do, what we can't do. We developed a joint operational policy that we worked on. We want to enhance and coordinate our joint training activities. So something like the tunnel that we did out in the Pittsburgh area was a multi-disciplinary group of people working together on this that probably would not have happened if it wouldn't be for PennTIME. And we want to improve driver education and outreach, because really we need to teach those laws about what we need to do to keep people, motorists, and others from getting hurt. We had our first official PennTIME meeting January 2017. So again, we are still very, very new working towards this. So we need to continue to work together. Again, establish the statewide incident management panel. I'm going to let Dave talk about the structure of the panel here as well.
Sure. And Ron Wiley from PennDOT D8, I answered your question in the chat box. I mean, this is going to show you sort of how PennTIME is structured, and not sort of, it's going to show you exactly how PennTIME is structured. But we have these 4 basic levels starting all the way up to the executive statewide TIM panel. These are the bosses. This is the executive high-level guidance to provide oversight for PennTIME. Where the rubber really meets the road is in this statewide TIM panel. This is really what we affectionately call the worker bees. It's the primary leadership group fostering the TIM initiatives and helping to implement some of these multidisciplinary TIM programs. And then, working beyond that, heading down the chain, we've got the regional TIM teams. And I should just also point out that these are not necessarily in order of importance, but it just shows the way the communication flows up and down the ladder. So we look at those regional TIM teams, everything that we just spoke about, whether it's in the Southwestern Commission or the DVRPC area, they work a lot at their level to develop a lot of different initiatives, but they, oftentimes they felt as though they were working in a vacuum and things weren't being heard. And so PennTIME helps, to take those initiatives that are developed at that level and bring them to the fore in front of a much larger group. And then you have, the statewide TIM committees, and these are the groups that really look at the task development to keep enhancing these TIM strategies, and they report back to the statewide TIM panel. And we're going to get into some of the specifics of the committees moving forward here. And it looks like this. We've got the training committee, and every single one of these committees is important in its own way. And I don't think that any one of them takes priority over another. They all have key things going on that are driving these efforts forward. But looking at training, I mean, really, these are the guys who are putting together the TIM training across the Commonwealth. They organize the in-person training classes, the virtual training classes, online training, et cetera, to make sure that the goals that have been set for us at the level of federal highway are being met. And you're going to see some of that coming up in a little bit as well. We have our technology committee. Goodness knows there's plenty of technology out there, and there's more coming on board every day. I think John Parker from the PA Turnpike is on this meeting right now. John's one of our strongest advocates and leaders heading up the technology committee, whether it's utilizing technologies like Waze and Google and third-party hardware and software applications. The technology group really works to pull all of that together within the lens of TIM. We've got public education and outreach, which has been really strongly built up by one Chuck Yorks. And again, you're going to see some examples of some of the public education and outreach things that PennTIME has been doing. But these are the people who are responsible for getting the word on the street to the general public. It's one of the hardest things there is to do, to get the information out there and get that public awareness. But these guys focus on it and they do an excellent job. Legislative affairs, pretty much what you would assume it is. These are the folks who serve as liaisons to our elected officials to help drive forward legislation that can improve traffic incident management practices and responder safety. And then, of course, we've got our TIM Task Force Development Group, which helps work with all of the various task forces that we spoke about earlier and transmit their concerns up to a statewide level. And then lastly, but certainly not least, towing and recovery. You saw the numbers near the beginning of the presentation. These are the folks that usually take it the hardest out on the road. Why? Because they're usually left alone. They're the last people standing to clear incidents after a lot of other responders have left and they don't have a lot of protection. So, they are struck at an alarming rate. And the towing and recovery group in that committee really helps us with understanding the regulations, bringing their concerns to us, and taking advantage of all of the connections that PennTIME can provide to really improve their situation out on the road. So this is a quick look, and we don't expect anybody to read this. It is a bit of an eye chart, but this is the PennTIME Joint Operational Policy. It was initiative number 4 in the Transportation Advisory Committee report that Todd spoke about. But this is basically what we call a play nice document. This is what establishes sort of some of the ground rules for how everybody is supposed to work together. And if you look on that second page there on the right, you can see there that this was sort of the formative part of developing what committees were going to be developed within the structure of PennTIME. So this is one of our guiding documents that we pay close attention to and use on a regular basis to help drive our mission forward. PennTIME itself, again, the engagement is across the entire spectrum, and I'm not going to read the list to you. You can see it there. We did bold including traffic engineers down there because, again, that is something that we truly, truly believe in. It is the Traffic Engineering and Safety Conference. We are the and safety part of that, and we're happy to be there. PennTIME held its first full meeting in April of 2017. We have had quarterly meetings regularly since then. We have never missed a performance, as they say, and we're proud to say that we are still, to this day, getting anywhere from 75 to 85 people on these meetings, whether it's in person or virtually. And so the amount of enthusiasm surrounding the group and the people willing to contribute is very heartening to all of us. So I'll turn it back over to Todd now, and he can talk a little bit more about the interagency agreement and the issues surrounding that.
Yeah, so I want to make sure, we're going to repeat this over and over and over again. You're going to hear, we want you to get involved in PennTIME. We need you to get involved in PennTIME. We could pay you absolutely nothing to get involved in PennTIME, but we need you to get involved in PennTIME. There is a time commitment. There is no budget for PennTIME. It is for the greater good, so to speak, as to why we do what we do. We are all working together for this, but we need your help. We need you to get involved. In 2018, we put together an interagency agreement. And again, what Dave talked about earlier is it's a play nice document. There's no funding. There's no budget for PennTIME. Right now, that's funded out of my Turnpike budget. And it's a lot of the work that Dave and I put together, and a lot of volunteers across many agencies help to do this, to put this together. So this is what this document was. It basically says that we'll work together. The interagency agreement, it could only be created or enacted across state agencies. So we could only have an agreement with each of our state agencies. So the official announcement for this occurred August 28th of 2018. Secretary Richards was there, and we met at the Turnpike building, and we came together, and we had a lot of our partners there to talk about this. These are the partners, the parties to the agreement: Department of Health, Pennsylvania State Police, Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, PennDOT, and the Turnpike.
The PennTIME initiative reflects our desire to clear the hurdles that could result from many different state and local agencies being responsible for both the state and the local road system. To this end, the PennTIME organization will have representatives from the General Assembly, law enforcement, fire, trucking, tow operators, and other local interests. This is another milestone in our ongoing campaign to improve statewide and localized coordination on traffic incidents. We have high traffic volumes on our major routes, and our goal is to keep them moving safely 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
This program is absolutely critical in relationship to doing what we can to take care of not only the police, not only the fire and EMS, but the tow truck operators that are also out there working to do what they can to clear the road as quickly as possible.
Really what today was about was a key milestone in our efforts to work together in traffic incident management. So you saw today with the breadth of people that were here, the amount of different agencies, the locals, the local officials, everyone that has to come together to put a standard operating procedure around keeping everyone safe. When you take your phone out, if you've ever had to make that 911 call and you hear help is on the way, these are all the folks that come to get you out of harm's way. And it's about putting a common operating procedures around, policies around these procedures allow us all to be safe every single day.
So again, we need your help. Dave and I will have a session at 3:30 today. It's session 2C called Communications, Coordination, and Cooperation. It's going to delve a little bit further into some of these disciplines and how they respond and what they do. So please take a second to check it out if you have it, and you can learn a little bit more about what we're trying to work on through PennTIME. So we're going to talk about some of the committee activities, talk about our training committee, and I just lost my screen here, so I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be doing this or if Dave's supposed to be doing this. So
these are you. These are you, but if you don't have it, I can gladly take it over.
Yep, I have the PowerPoint up, but I lost everything else. So for whatever reason, my other two monitors went blank. So hopefully they'll come back up. So the training committee goal is to promote the delivery of TIM training. So TIM training is a lot of things. It's the Sharp 2 training program. If you want TIM training program, again, for your organization, if you're an engineering firm, we provide this training for free. Okay, it's available online, e-learning, and we'll talk about the e-learning when we also it's available in person, virtually as well. So we could do set up a WebEx or a Zoom meeting or something like that, and we can give you this. It's a 4-hour class. It takes probably about a 3.5-hour class, but you get professional development hours for taking this training as well. And we think if you're working anywhere on the roadway, we need you to know what an emergency responder faces. So it's not just about TIM training. We also have unified incident command training, and we're putting people together. Right now in Pennsylvania, we have 312 trainers to teach the TIM training course. Probably in the past 4 years, there have probably been maybe less than 10 of us that have taught a class. The 3 of us that are on this call presenting this are 3 that teach the class more regularly than anybody else. Another place, the Sharp e-learning course, that's on the Train PA platform, learning management platform. So that's available out there to do for free as well. Responder safety. If you have not checked out the responder safety website, go to www.respondersafety.com for free high quality training. It's related to all aspects of transportation. So it's not just for responders. Go there, you can take free training modules. You can learn about lighting. You can learn about parking vehicles at scene. You can learn all kinds of things about uniform traffic control devices, the MUTCD as it relates to there's resources, there's videos, there's a lot of great information. There's research on there as well if you're looking for some research. Dave, do you want to take over and talk about the Sharp 2 learning while I work on my monitors here?
Sure, will do. Yeah, so again, as Todd mentioned, we do have online training available through a modification, a sort of a Pennsylvania-specific version of the Federal Highway Sharp 2 e-learning program. Development of the e-learning course was sponsored by the Pennsylvania Turnpike, PennDOT, PEMA, and of course the fine folks from PennTIME. So this is available on a couple of different platforms. If you can jump ahead one slide, Todd. I think you went back to responder safety. So this is available on a couple of platforms you can find. You can leave it right there. This is available on the Train PA system, learning management system, which is sponsored by the PA Department of Health. It's also available for municipal law enforcement on the Pennsylvania Virtual Training Network. So we're happy to say that that successfully rolled out in the first quarter of 2019. And the slide that you're seeing here is sort of just a representative slice of what our one-pager looks like for the training, showing both the laptop and the mobile application for it. And then on the right-hand side there, you have one of our performance reports, which are provided monthly and distributed to everybody within the PennTIME group to show the progress of the training itself, how we're doing overall in terms of total participation, and the disciplines that they're coming from. Understandably, that because the Train PA system is a Department of Health administered system, we get an overwhelming amount of EMS participants, but it really is a platform that is there for anybody and everyone who wants to take it. It's just very well known amongst EMS because it is a Department of Health initiative. We have multiple credit types available for it. People can get professional development hours for taking the training. The EMS folks can get their EMS credits, and the folks from municipal law enforcement can get their what they call CLE credits, which are continuing law enforcement education. So Todd, you can go ahead and move to the next slide from there. We're proud to say that since the rollout in 2019, over 6,400 emergency responders have been trained for free using the online e-learning. And that includes the entire City of Philadelphia Fire Department. Todd had a great connection with the fire commissioner in Philadelphia, and it was mandated throughout the entire department. That was one heck of a lift, I can tell you, because one of my roles is also to handle the technical support. I sort of ride herd on the tech support website for the online training. And when you have, a few thousand firefighters in a major metropolitan area with varying network, hardware, software capabilities trying to do this, we fielded quite a few emails for sure, but everybody got through it, and it's one of the things that we are most proud of. And you can go ahead and move forward from there, Todd. So taking a look at this is basically a look at the online, or I'm sorry, the in-person classes rather, looking at this timeline of how training has evolved in recent years. Back in 2016, there's 22 classes for a total of 567 participants in the Commonwealth. And then Todd Lees hit the scene with his new role at the Turnpike as the TIM coordinator, and things sort of just took off like a rocket, elevating up through 2017, 18, 19, really a high watermark there in 2019 with 137 classes, 3,200 people trained in person. I actually think Todd was in a personal competition with the e-learning to try to beat those numbers. And I think there were a few times where you did outpace it, Todd, so kudos to you. 2020, obviously being the year that it has been, and it can't get over fast enough, there's been a definite decline in the number of in-person classes because they simply were not allowed, but we have adapted and overcome. Todd has begun doing virtual instructor-led classes online. So when you pair that with the e-learning that's available on the websites for Train PA and the virtual training network, we are getting back on pace, and it's going to usher in a whole new world. Even after COVID is done and over with, there are going to be a lot of things that we took away from this experience that are probably going to continue, and that is a good thing. So Todd, you can advance to the next slide. This is going to give folks a look at the nationwide numbers. These are the numbers provided by the Federal Highway Administration. This information is accurate as of November 23rd of this year, and really gives a look at where everybody is at in terms of their training efforts. And if you look at Pennsylvania, we've got 54,500 responders, give or take, that require this training. And when Todd advances to the next slide, you'll see those numbers. We're at about 40.1% trained in the Commonwealth right now, with just about 20,700 responders trained through a combination of in-person classes, virtual instructor-led training, and the e-learning. So you can go ahead and proceed forward there, Todd. Lastly, I want to touch on the Unified Incident Command training here. The goal is to update training that was last done in 2006. This has been slowed down a bit by the COVID situation, but we are working to develop the Unified Incident Command because it is still a real pain point out of the roadway for a lot of responders when it comes to working across disciplines. You can advance from there, Todd. So looking a little bit at technology, wanted to touch briefly on something that PennTIME has been working on as one of its basically side projects, but it's a pretty sizable one, and it's the Automated Vehicle Incident Response Plan. And when we advance to that slide, this is an initiative that was spearheaded by Mark Kopko, who is the head of transformational technology for PennDOT. And the work that we have done in the AVIRP.
Sorry.
You can jump, that's okay. We developed the national framework document for this, looking at best practices. You can go back one slide if you would. There we go. Looked at some of the stakeholders, the best practices, and we had a framework document out in 2019. Multiple stakeholder meetings were held, and you can jump to the next slide, Todd.
Just be a second until my monitor decides to cooperate.
So, all right. Nope. Looks like we might have
Go
skipped a few. Yep. Just come back a little bit.
How's that?
That's good. Yeah. So basically, you know, I'm not going to address these too hard because there is going to be a session specifically addressing this, and we'll promote that in just a moment. But many of you may remember the incident in the Tempe, Arizona area a couple of years back involving a self-driving Uber that was involved in a crash with a pedestrian walking a bicycle. One of the things they found there that there were a lot of gaps in the preparation and planning for an incident like that. They had a bit of a public relations nightmare. And Mark Kopko has made it Pennsylvania's goal to never, ever be in that position when it comes to the connected automated vehicles that are currently being tested throughout the Commonwealth. So moving forward on that, again, some of the things that we're looking at in terms of the AVIRP and the specific focus areas, we talked a bit about the framework, and the PennTIME working group of AV leaders includes a number of groups, especially representatives from the city of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, where a lot of this testing of the level 4 AVs are going on. Development of a response roadmap is really where the focus was initiated. And we have the clever little rhyming of the investigation, extrication, and preservation. Those are the three main tent poles that make up the effort. And it's really an effort to bridge the knowledge gap that is existing between folks who are responders on the road who might interact with these vehicles and the AV developers themselves. So Todd, you can go ahead. And again, like I said, there's going to be much, much more detail on this. We'd invite everybody to please take advantage of session 7E, which is going to be on Friday, the 11th, at 11:30 a.m. My colleague, Gabby Benson from Drive, is going to be joining some other panelists to really delve into details about the AV incident response plan. So please make sure that you take advantage of that. Todd, I'll turn it back to you if you want to talk about shrinking the TIM timeline.
Sure. I'm offended that you just said other panelists and didn't mention me by name as being part of that, but that's okay. I mean, hurt my feelings. I'm just going to and that's why doing this presentation, I've screwed up your PowerPoint and went back and forth multiple times because I knew you were doing it. So, that's the way I roll.
That was my payback for you giving me the slide seizures there.
Yeah, there you go. I hopefully got all my monitors back up and hopefully back in the game here. We talked about shrinking the timeline. So we want to shrink the timeline for responders on the roadway. The number one thing is, the longer you're on the roadway, the more chance you have of a secondary crash occurs. When we talked about the responders that were killed, the 44 in 2019, the 46 in 2020, the 151 Pennsylvania emergency responders struck, every one of those were struck in a secondary accident, meaning they were out doing something, either on a traffic stop, clearing an accident, clearing debris, taking care of disabled vehicles when they were struck and injured, struck and killed. So we have to change that because we want to shrink that timeline. So from the time the incident occurs until the time we get back to normal conditions is what we're working to shrink the timeline here. So we're working together. It's not just one agency that's doing this. We need to have all of our partners together. And when we list 911 up there in the upper right-hand side, we're talking about your fire, we're talking about your EMS, we're talking about your towers, because every one of those are a key part of working together. Just wanted to show you some of the instant timelines that we have here on the Turnpike that we do. We track these using some technology called Click or some software called Click, and we're able to track every incident that we have on the Turnpike. We're able to tell, when the incident happened, when the ITS was activated, when we got the INRIX and Waze data coming in to say that there was a slowdown there, and when the response happened again, when the roadway's clear, and when the incident is clear, and also when the roadway traffic returns to normal. So we're able to look at every incident in our computer-aided dispatch system. So we have our dispatch center in Highspire, we track everything. So every incident that occurs on the Turnpike, we have a record of that occurs here. Again, we look at these. So for that year, we had 30,000 incidents for that year. We're able to track them, and we can look at major incidents, anything over 2 hours, minor, anything less than 30 minutes, and then anything between 30 minutes and 2 hours are those intermediate incidents that we track, again, using. We could look further, again, just looking to see how many major incidents, so we could filter these out using this. And again, this is a very quick explanation of this, but we want to just give you a general idea of what we do. We also have contracted towers on the Turnpike. That's part of my responsibility. I manage the 112 fire companies, 67 ambulances, and 22 towers on the Turnpike. So we want to know how long it takes them to respond. Our towers work a little bit differently on the Turnpike. When an incident happens, we don't wait till somebody gets there and say, I need a tow truck. Our tow trucks go right away. They're required to get on the scene within 30 minutes of a call. That's anything that's blocking the roadway, or within 45 minutes of anything that's just sitting on the side of the roadway, because we want to get them out of there as quickly as possible. So we can bring up basically a dashboard showing what they do as well. And then we could also bring this up showing how many responders and how much they were in compliance of those 30 minutes and those 2 hours. So that if they're not making that 45 minutes, or they're not making the 30 minutes that they're supposed to have, I could contact them and say, what's going on? Why aren't you making your times here? And make sure that we have the best companies out there doing the best job. These companies that have 5-year contracts with the tow company, we evaluate them every 5 years. We put out for an RFP, and if you're not performing, you're not going to be one of our providers. I want to show you here the CAR program. This is something that John Parker worked on. Hopefully you'll hear the sound here. Did you hear any sound, Dave?
We have seen over the last few years tremendous growth in the amount of information we can get from a variety of sources.
Anybody hear any sound?
Whether it's traffic information, real
Yeah, we do.
time,
We got it.
weather information is being more refined, volumes and other information about how traffic flows on the system are getting more robust, but we weren't able to combine it into a way that really helped us operate.
The CAR program is catch it early, act, analyze, and review. And it's been helpful for us. It's reduced our time on the roadway, and it's got our customers moving faster. So we have a lot of different data. We have data coming in every 30 seconds. We have data coming in every 2 minutes. We have Waze data coming in. We have speed data coming in. We also have weather data coming in. So the start of CAR was, let's gather all this information that comes from multiple sources and crowdsourcing, and put it into an application. We actually divide all of that information up into half-mile segments. So every 2 minutes, the early warning detection tool actually reaches out to Waze, reaches out to Interagency, and reaches out to weather, and gets that half-mile segment of what's happening in the half-mile segment. So it gives the duty officer a way of looking at that half-mile segment every 2 minutes to see what's happening on the roadway.
In terms of the volumes of data that we are processing and working on a daily basis, it's vast amounts of data that is fed right through for visualization, for best situational awareness of what's going on, as well as being collected for analysis of it on the back end as well for trends.
We can actually go on here, and if we see an incident and it shows that there's a slowdown in a specific area, then what we can do is we can click on that incident, pull it up, and see exactly what's going on. And by utilizing that one system that pulls resources from different programs, it gives us a better view of what's going on out there on the roadway.
The catch it early piece of it is, to catch it early, we use an early warning detection tool, which kind of brings third party and crowdsourcing together and gives an overall picture of each half-mile segment of roadway. And the ACT piece of it is a TIMS viewer, which is our GIS application. And that gives us a good overall view of who's there, who needs to respond, what's happening at the scene, and what the backlog is at the actual scene. The after action review is afterwards we get together and we have to understand how we responded, could we respond differently, how we could do things better.
Our biggest challenge is keeping an eye on the 552 miles of roadway that anything can happen on at any time.
Our duty officers have about 8 or 9 different screens they actually monitor, about 15 to 18 different applications they actually have to go through. And that could be from social media to the CAD system to our new ATMS system, which controls the signs and helps with traffic, and just multiple things. Twitter, they look at just different stuff that they need to look at in order to monitor roadway, and they look at the cameras that we have on the roadway and monitor the speeds. So they have multiple different applications they need to look at, and once they respond or start to respond to an incident, they have to do multiple things: call people, make sure that everybody's dispatched to the actual scene, make sure everybody's safe, and make sure that we're doing the right things at the right time.
So I just wanted to show you again the car program. Very proud of that. John Parker does a great job with that. He's a superstar. It's not right in the head, but he's still ours, so we love him. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck to talk about public education outreach. I understand that the screen may be a little bit blurry, some of the slides. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll work to try to fix that as well. Chuck?
Thank you. Public education and outreach is a key to the activities that we had to take up as committees. So if Todd, you want to move through these fairly quickly for me. The goal is to look at increasing TIM awareness. The Paul Kennedy and Lori Schenk are now chairing the committee. Adam Marshall from PennDOT District 10 and I had it at the beginning, and with this committee and some others, we're just kind of moving through a normal evolution and getting more and more people involved. But it's about education and working with whatever media we can. In particular, we've had some real recent successes, and I'll give the credit where it belongs, and that is to the folks at Pennsylvania Turnpike and Todd Lease for spearheading a lot of things. What happens when you get into these conversations about traffic incident management is that you make connections to people who can help. In particular, we've had great success in hooking up with Lamar Advertising and some others on billboards to spread.
Here's an important message for everyone.
I'll move through that one, Chuck. Go ahead.
But the billboard campaign, we gave this move over, slow down graphic. And what the billboard companies did was when they had the opening, had an option to do it, they included it. In particular, we got great coverage during National Traffic Incident Response Awareness Week. Beasley Media Group in the Philadelphia area, which covers a number of stations in Philadelphia and in New Jersey. There was a partnership between PennTIME and New Jersey TIM, and a 30-minute public affairs program was produced and aired on those stations, reaching a great number of people in the public that wouldn't necessarily hear the message otherwise.
Trying to advance here, Chuck.
You should have that. You should have the audio for that on the audio icon there.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with Zoom right now. It's saying it's trying to close the program, so I don't want to really close the program unless somebody else has it ready to load back up.
You know what? I can pull my backup copy. If give me just 1 second here.
Because I can stop sharing if you want to share from there. Then
yeah, let me.
Because I'm not sure what's going on here.
Okay, let me just grab that real quick, and I should be able to do that.
In the meantime, let me talk about one of our issues, and that is that no matter how much we talk about move over and slow down laws and some of the things we've been able to do, a great number of motorists simply say they do not know what they're supposed to do. And one of our greatest challenges in public education and outreach is teaching people how to drive past an incident scene. It isn't just as simple as pull over and slow down and put your doggone phone down and don't gawk at what's going on. People are working hard to save somebody's life, and you don't need to add to it. So as we continue to move forward, that's going to be our challenge, is being able to deliver that message to a broader audience and more effectively.
Let me try to hit
All
this.
right. So I'm just about there, Todd. I can be ready in just 1 second here.
Let me see if I can play the audio now.
Here's an important message for everyone who drives a motor vehicle. Every day, an average of 2 emergency responders are struck by vehicles while working on the road. Some don't survive. Others are critically injured and can no longer perform their life-saving jobs. Do your part to keep everyone safe on the road. When you see flashing lights of any color on the road ahead of you, slow down and move over. Give responders room to work. This message is brought to you by PennTIME and this station. Learn more about Pennsylvania Traffic Incident Management at penntime.com.
Big success right there.
Okay.
Here's a
we're currently also working with AAA. That they're going to do some public education and outreach for us as well through the AAA Foundation and AAA Federation to try to promote the Move Over law. We have some additional meetings set up with them, Ted Leonard and group locally in Pennsylvania to try to share the new Move Over messaging we have as well. Chuck, I'll let you continue here.
Again, Responder Safety, Emergency Responder Safety Institute. Todd is now the vice chair of their training committee. If you take nothing else out of this entire presentation, take a moment and go to respondersafety.com. The amount of information that can help keep you safe and that you can pass along to others to keep them safe is, I can't even begin to describe it. It's a most fabulous use of taxpayer money and an awful lot of volunteer efforts. Professionally produced media from Stonehouse Media. It's just terrific stuff. Respondersafety.com. All kinds of training and opportunities there too.
Yeah, we'll be doing a video shoot for respondersafety.com on the Turnpike next Tuesday down in the Philadelphia area, again, to show how fast traffic moves past emergency responders at roadway incidents is what we're shooting next week.
Continuing to work with a number of partners, Highway Safety Network, Tracy Fox has become very much involved. There's Move Over Education that's led by some police departments. Both Exeter Township and Westchester have been very active. Westchester, I believe it's Westchester, puts out specific targeted move over, slow down estimates, and Todd knows the specific numbers, but in a very short period of time, they're able to write pretty much as many tickets as they possibly can. Write a ticket, return, and write another ticket.
Yeah, so for a 3-hour detail for Exeter Township that we did last month with them, they asked us to come down and help, and PennDOT helped with this as well. And AAA, they, for a 3-hour move over detail, they wrote 38 citations for people failing to move over. These were all captured on video as well. They had a big move over DMS sign, portable DMS sign before the detail telling people move over to the law. If they would have had another 5 cars, they probably could have wrote another 100 citations doing that, because every time we got back to the start point, they were able to pull over another vehicle. And the goal for this wasn't to issue citations. The goal for this was to hand out move over literature and education. So I encourage everybody on this call or on this Zoom and this presentation that if you want move over literature, please reach out to me. Please reach out to us. We have free stuff that we can hand you. We can hand you out fact sheets. And again, the reason why we're doing this is because we have people getting injured, killed, equipment damaged every day in this country. So I'll take it from here for a little bit. David, I seem to be able to have a little bit of control back again, so I'll just keep going if that's okay, since we're close to ending up here.
Yep, we'll just have to watch our time. We're at about 10 minutes left, max.
Yep, I'm going to fly through these. We have a legislative committee, and again, it's clearing a house for legislative affairs issues. We develop a consensus for the General Assembly and work together. Some recent legislation was the automated work zone vehicle. That was in 2018, I believe, commercial vehicle platooning. We have the cameras in the work zones as well that we have deployed, and the cameras on the school bus arms. We also did a legislative survey report that asked what the questions were that the responders faced. We got over 800 responses back for this from local responders, and we developed a report with Dave's help to look at what are the issues facing responders. Act 105 was passed in the Turnpike. It was Senate Bill 1281. It's the new move over law. So Pennsylvania did have a steer clear law. It's now going to be referred to as the move over law. That goes into effect April 27th of 2021. And again, I have fact sheets and I have some information to send to you. So just reach out to me, send me an email, let me know you want this, and we'll be glad to share that with you. Increased penalties in 2017. These are what the penalties were. In the interest of time, we'll just go through these, but this is what the first offense is now. It's a $500 fine. So if you see an emergency responder or a disabled vehicle on the side of the road, if you can safely move over into an adjacent lane, if there's an available lane to move over, you must move over. If you can't move over, you must slow down to not more than 20 miles below the posted speed limit. It also adds 2 points to the driver's license. License suspension of violation results in serious bodily injury or a third and subsequent offense. So we will be promoting this heavily with PennDOT, with other partners. If your agency, if your group, if your transportation professionals and engineering firms could also help us promote this, that will be key for us. We want to get the word out. We don't want people cited for this. We want them to not hit responders. That's the goal for this. Signed into law October 28th, and again, goes into effect April 27th. Chuck, you want to talk about TIM Task Force Development? I think this is Chuck.
Am I still unmuted? I am still unmuted. Yeah, TIM Task Force Development Committee, Chris King and Josh Spano run this committee. Their goal is to continue to assist people like Greg Mazer up in Northwestern Pennsylvania get a program started, or somebody who wants to start a program in Tioga County, in Mansfield or Wellsboro, an opportunity to do that. There is a flyer's been produced on how to get a TIM team started and some basic things that way. We will continue to do as much as we can to carry through with that. This Tuesday evening is going to be the first TIM After Dark Zoom meeting. It's going to be a 1-hour opportunity every month, hosted by SPC, but intended to be a statewide opportunity for someone to join into a Zoom conversation every month. And our initial thing is going to be getting new TIM teams started. It's going to be our initial.
Yep.
Again, I want to just thank the metropolitan planning organizations led by DVRPC to start, and then the Southwest Pennsylvania Commission, Lebanon County, MPO, and Tri-County, which represents Cumberland, Dauphin, and Perry counties. We have other opportunities. We've got lots more planning organizations who could be a little more involved. We had some additional interest from Franklin County yesterday, and York and Lancaster County are probably likely candidates moving forward. We'd like to get up into that Allentown and into the northeastern Pennsylvania region as well. And again, this is where the TIM teams are in green. There's a lot of slightly less organized or less formalized programs kind of running around. And again, it's one of the reasons why we're going to go with this TIM After Dark monthly call to try to continue to develop TIM teams.
Okay, I'll take it over here. We're going to talk about towing. We have our towing committee. It's currently chaired by Debbie Abel from the Pennsylvania Towing Association. Also, Dan Spees is a great help. He's the executive director for the Pennsylvania Towing Association. And we're working, again, to collaborate with law enforcement and legislators on issues that affect the towers. There's a lot of issues that the towers need that we're working to try to get passed. We're looking to pass some hold harmless legislation during the next legislative session as well. A PSP tow list. We're looking for training and equipment standards as well. And we're developing a TIM for tower specific training course. So a Sharp 2 training course that is very towing specific. Again, we want them to know what everybody else knows, but we want them to know what they are legally allowed to do and what they aren't allowed to do. That's the Tim for Towers program. So I'm working with members of the Pennsylvania Towing Committee on that course as well. We did some Wreckmaster training at the Turnpike Commission. So at our tip building, we overturned buses, we overturned a car, and we had hands-on training to again teach some of our personnel how to effectively upright vehicles, how to move them off the roadway. Not because we wanted to teach our people how to become tow operators, but we want them to better understand what the tow operator faces when they're out on the roadway. So it was very good training because one, it's cool to be able to upright a bus and do that kind of stuff. So, but it was a big eye opener for some of our personnel to be able to do that training as well. Dave, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, just want to touch on a couple of programmatic things for advancing the PennTIME program. A lot of social media use for TIM practitioner collaboration. Always looking to progress those initiatives at the committee level. The website development, we have functional requirements development on there. That's an old bullet, but the website is out there. It's full-fledged at penntime.com. You can see it over my shoulder on one side or the other. Please check it out. Ongoing efforts to integrate traffic incident management in the connected automated space. Provide some oversight and guidance for PennSTART, which there's another big session on later on in the conference. And of course, the big ticket item is always training. So go ahead, Todd, you can advance. Just a quick look here at the social media that we talked about. We do have a dedicated Facebook page, a closed Facebook page for PennTIME. We are also present on LinkedIn as well, so you can always find us there. And you can go ahead and advance, Todd. This is just a quick look at the website. I'm sorry, after we get to the Facebook address there. This is the PennTIME website, and we are very, very proud of it. There have been some changes to it lately, and I'll say one thing about a website, especially for organizations that are largely driven by volunteer efforts. One of the downfalls of a website is it can usually look like nobody's minding the store. So we're very happy that recently we initiated an RSS feed on the homepage that drives information from our Facebook page, carefully curated information from our Facebook page onto our public-facing website. So it is Pennsylvania TIM specific. The Facebook page, as you can imagine, gets a lot of information, some of it not necessarily TIM related. So like I said, we are curating that information to make sure that only the TIM related information hits the website. And that way, every time you go to the PennTIME website, you'll see updated news and information. So it always stays relevant. So we're pretty proud of that. And with that said, Todd, I'll turn it back to you for a quick touch on PennSTART, and then we can wrap things up.
Yeah, finally, one of the major projects that we started with through PennTIME was after we had our kickoff session in 2016. Federal Highway approached us and asked us about building a training facility to train emergency responders in Pennsylvania on a transportation track. We've been working as partners with PennDOT and with Penn State University on that since then. And what we come up with is the Pennsylvania Safety Transportation and Research Track. Information about this is going to be brought up at the Friday session, so I don't want to talk too much about this or share too much, but we do have a business plan as part of this. We're having some ongoing discussion with planning partners for closing the funding gap. We're talking about the PennDOT's working on the detailed market analysis, and we're doing this. Hopefully, this got slowed down a little bit because of COVID as well, but we're assured by our leadership that this is still being pushed forward. It may get delayed, but it is still a viable project. PennStart.org is the website for this. So please feel free to go check that out as well. Again, make sure you go to the Friday session, session 7E. I encourage you today to check out session 1A on technologies in TIM, which is going to focus on the Pennsylvania State Police, talking about them using their 3D scanner for accident reconstructions. And 2C is going to be Dave, Wolf, and I coming back at you with a communications coordination and cooperation, and we'll delve a little bit further into what responders face on the roadway. There is our contact information. There is our Facebook group and our website information. So thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask them now, or also to put them in the chat box. But thank you guys for taking your time to listen to us today. Hope it was enjoyable and informative.
Thanks again, everyone. I know they have the keynote coming up at 1 o'clock, so we'll have to probably move it along, but we really, really appreciated you participating today and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.